Okay. So recording is in progress.
Okay, yes, we are better, sir.
All right. Okay, but when you are cool, I know me that no raise a question ye because our Yoruba ayatone aye yo ale ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ fẹ́ gbà wá rò pé patriotism lásán nìyẹn kì í ṣe patriotism o. We are a very different kind of people from a lot of other peoples in the world. I want to come with a question that come in the 19th century, late 19th century. I want on my way to come my way to come Kowe. The best of them all was Samuel Johnson, a pastor. To call the history of the Yorubas from earliest times to the coming of European imperialism or something like that, British colonialism. On local Koiwe. But Kishon can what and your call at the same time, Bobo. A country I want more, la one saw. A country on them money we pay Middle East, the big historic events of this world to shell. The earliest empires were the Empire of Egypt, the Empire of Babylon, and so on. The discovery of writing, the Kineka, etc. So I want that we pay BT center of civilization and that pay ibene awa biru BT awa Yoruba ti le wa nìyẹn. Iru BT awa Yoruba ti le wa nìyẹn. The center of civilization in the world, and that's why we are such a center of civilization in Black Africa. It's not unreasonable, but it is not true. In country one best tag go language what got to ancient Egypt. And culture kan àwọn òrìṣà wa fẹ́ jọ òrìṣà ancient Egypt. Kankan fẹ́ gbọ́ sọ bí wọn láti wá middle belt, middle east. Sometimes they call it, they say Egypt, but sometimes they just say Middle East. Because àwọn ibi tí àwọn mọ̀ pé civilization ti wá nìyẹn. Ibẹ̀ ni Judaism ti bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ibẹ̀ ni Christianity ti bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ibẹ̀ ni Islam ti bẹ̀rẹ̀. In addition to the more ancient things like the Empire of Babylon, Egypt, etc. So I want to conclude with the tower to one in here. And then somebody warrior evidence came become one tag them. Be I want name myth can we pay our Yoruba. Whereas we used to trade to their land very early. And as a result of that, Yoruba communities emerged in some parts of Hausa land in very ancient times. Hausa Miss was okay. Well, that's evidence where I want Yoruba. Middle is nothing but. Now I buy ìlú wa lọ. Ti ara wọn wá dúró. Wọ́n pè ìlú kan ní Gòbír. Àwa Yorùbá ń pè ní Gògòbírí. Àwa Yorùbá traders pọ̀ síbẹ̀ gan-an ni. Wọ́n tún pè ìlú mìíràn kan ní Kùkáwà. Tí àwa Yorùbá pọ̀ sí. So àwọn Hausa wá create myth pé ìgbà tá à ń bọ̀ láti Middle East. Like fragments of our people dúró níbẹ̀ wọ̀nyẹn. So Clapperton lọ sí ó wá sílẹ̀ Yorùbá, the first white man to enter into Yoruba land. Ó dẹ̀ lọ sílẹ̀ àwọn Hausa across the Niger. Ìgbà tó débẹ̀ the Sultan of Sokoto sọ ọ̀rọ̀ àwọn myth wọn yẹn fún àwọn Yorùbá ní Gòbèrè, àwọn Yorùbá ní Kùkáwà, ìgbà tó ń bọ̀ láti Middle East ní kankan Krapatin kọ sílẹ̀ sọ àwọn èèyàn ti wá tán ti ń sọ pé tẹ́lẹ̀ Middle East láti wá tọ́nì so wọ́n tún wá àdè yẹn mọ́ pé Middle East láti wá gan-an gbà tá à ń bọ̀ láti Middle East ìgbà yẹn ni ara wa dúró ní Gòbèrè ní Kùkáwà and so on. Okay, then kí ló wá lé wa kúrò ní Middle East yẹn gan-an tá a fi wá penetrate deep into the heart of tropical Africa níbi tó lọ́hùn tá a wà yìí. Àwọn wa ní Islam bẹ̀rẹ̀ ní Arabia. After tí Islam ti lágbára tán, some princes of the land wọ́n sì fẹ́ máa worship ancient gods wọn, ó wá dogun ó dọ̀tẹ̀, so wọ́n láti kúrò, àwọn ló wá sílẹ̀. Tẹ́ bá ka Samuel Johnson, tírú mi bá ka Samuel Johnson lé ní màmá rẹ́rìn ni, because there is not much truth in all of that. And so àwọn ìtàn Middle East wọ̀nyẹn, our serious historians of Africa àti kò sọnù, for the Yoruba people àti kò sọnù, I take it seriously more. All the time that time sọ gbogbo time bẹ̀ sí kó gbogbo ọ̀rọ̀ Middle East jọ yìí, there were traditions among Yoruba people themselves. Kò sí ọ̀rọ̀ Lámúrúdù Nimrod, ọ̀rọ̀ pé Lámúrúdù the first kìnnì kan ara àwọn èèyàn ló wá. Then àwọn mìíràn sọ pé no, ìgbà tí àwọn Arabs dá Islam sílẹ̀ ní 7th century ní kankan, that many centuries later than Nimrod, so on. So that kind of cacophony, the first educated Yoruba people create fún wa, than the origin Yoruba nìyẹn. But as I was saying, all the time that they were doing all this, there was a very solid myth of creation among the Yoruba, very similar to the Middle Eastern story of Adam. According to that myth, there was an very ancient time, the earliest of times, when all the surface of the earth was water. Then Olodumare, the creator God, decided to establish life on earth. So he sent some people from heaven to come down to the earth. Later, the story was embellished. They came down by a chain. But that is our solid account of our origin as a people. And that is hundreds of thousands of years ago. Nígbà tí àwọn tó Ọlọ́run dẹ̀ rán wá tán wọ́n balẹ̀ ní Ifẹ̀. They brought 3 things: a little piece of earth in a small pot, oru kékeré. Then they brought a palm nut, a kúrò, and then they brought a chicken. Those are the 3 things they brought. According to the myth, when they landed in the area now known as Ife, the place from where life spread out. That's why they call it Ife, and they poured a little bit of earth on the water. And by the commandment of God, the earth formed a mound. Then they put the chicken upon top of the mound, and the chicken began to scratch at it with its toes. And so it scratched and scratched by the will of God until all the continents and islands of the world were created. Then they planted the okuro, the palm nut, and it germinated and became the first plant in the world. And that's the story. And so they who came from heaven, Olodumare then asked one of them to mold a human being for him. And he molded man, and God gave it life. And so Olodumare, who came from heaven, I'm sorry, Oduduwa, who came from heaven, who came by a chain from heaven and did all of that, is regarded by the Yoruba people as a progenitor of the human race and of the Yoruba people. Well, about the time that I was beginning my study of history in the 1950s, a major revolution occurred. A major revolution occurred in the study of African history. Àwọn òyìnbó ló dictate philosophy history before then. Nǹkan táwọn dẹ̀ ń sọ ni wípé, if a people don't have a system of writing, then they cannot be said to have a history. History does not begin until men begin to write. That was their philosophy. One professor in Oxford, Trevor Roper, only àwọn students ń bèrè lọ́wọ́ pé àwọn fẹ́ kọ́ African history. Only there is nothing like African history. History does not begin until men begin to write. The history of Africa, I'm quoting him now. The history of Africa is the history of the white men in Africa. One díẹ̀ tó lọ lẹ́nu pé 100 years in kankan wọ̀nyí. Àwọn yẹn la lè sọ pé the African history. Before that, he said, it is darkness. Before that is darkness. And darkness is not a subject of history. And that sums up the white man's attitude. Our Dudua ni history, ni writing, therefore we have no history. But from about the 1950s, when I was an undergraduate in the revolution, a large number of scholars in different parts of the world were saying, this cannot be true. If a people don't have writing, they have other things from which you can reconstruct their history. So people began to collect the oral traditions more seriously. Our first literate Yoruba men of the 19th century, this is serious collection of Yoruba oral tradition. And then they called upon certain sciences to come and help. The first of such sciences is archaeology, by which you dig into the earth and unearth the remains of ancient civilizations, ancient towns, ancient communities, and so on. And you can analyze the things that you bring out and create a picture of how they lived. So that's part of the history of this area. And so the archaeologists went to work all over Africa. And they came out with the picture that Africa is the place where man originated in the world. It's the cradle of the human race. First of all, the archaeologists said that the origin of humans, the separation of humans from hominid types, from man-like creatures, occurred about 200,000 years ago. That was what they believed, and that it occurred somewhere in what you call the Rift Valley in Ethiopia and Kenya. But more archaeological work continued to be done. And in the past 10 years, we have come with another deeper story from archaeology, which shows that the earliest human bones that have been found in more recent excavations in places like Morocco, like the Sahara Desert, and so on, is 300,000 years old. 300,000 years old. So the picture became confused or became diffuse. It became clear where anybody will know what CBT human beings originate in Africa. Yes, Africa is the cradle of the human race, but nobody could tell anymore where man really originated in Africa. So the picture is that man could have originated anywhere in Africa, including the tropical forests. And so all kinds of theories began to emerge. Where if man originated in the deep tropical forests like West Africa and Central Africa, how could they have survived and so on? So the story then began to grow that yam tubers in the ground was enough of food and so on, which meant that man could have originated anywhere in Africa. Ibi táwọn archaeology bá wa dé mọ nìyẹn tí wọ́n sì padà wọ́n lè ṣe more than that. Then in recent times, another science emerged, science of DNA. DNA. I went from university to university all over the world. People began to do research into the DNA of the human race. DNA, evidence of your DNA is in you. It's in the ancient bones, Toti Kesile, Tambaleri. It does not disappear. So the DNA researchers in major universities like Harvard, Oxford, and so on, have come out with the statement, and listen to me very well here, with the statement that the oldest human DNA found across the world, I want to teach you research here all over the world, in every corner of the world, that the oldest DNA that has been found anywhere in the world was found among the Yoruba people of West Africa. That's a big one. That the oldest human DNA found anywhere on earth has been found among the Yoruba people of West Africa. So that has thrown us back to the original myth of creation, where one is the first to long create. That's what our fathers claimed in their myth of people coming from heaven, landing in Ife, and starting the human race. Now, a very important science, more reliable than archaeology, is now saying that the earliest human DNA that has been found anywhere on earth belongs among Yoruba people. Monati, I was in Ife in 2020. Lodesi University Guest House. And they on needed to pay me. They can be 8 p.m. Baba, Bolewa. When you kilo de kabiesi, Osheleo, Baba Mabo. I begin my one, I'm on the kabiesi and my wami boy, yeah, and you know Baba Goboa. Okay, Mombo Kabiesi. Somebody had sent to the Oni one of these statements of the serious DNA studies showing that the Yoruba race is the oldest race in the world. And the Oni was so excited he couldn't control himself. Especially because one of the researchers said that the DNA, the oldest human DNA found among the Yoruba, contains an element that is not exactly human, that is higher than human DNA, and that it is not found among any other people on earth. So you are left dumbfounded, speechless. So we're back now to the ancient myth of God sending some people down and creating life in Ife and so on and so forth. The general consensus today among scholars is that the oldest DNA, the oldest human DNA belongs among the Yoruba people. That's our origin. All the fanciful stories of coming from the Middle East, partly Arabs, partly not Arabs, it's all, nobody talks about them now anymore in intellectual circles. What we are talking about now is the result of the DNAs that have shown that the earliest human DNA found anywhere on earth has been found among Yoruba people. And so that's our origin. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Yeah, actually, Daddy, mo fẹ́ point wípé nínú tẹ́lifíṣàn pé a wá láti ilé Ifẹ̀, ó kún fún omi ní ayé ìgbà yẹn tí Ọlọ́run rán àwọn ènìyàn wá sílẹ̀ pé kí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ kí wọ́n gbé òrù àti èkùrọ́ pẹ̀lú adìyẹ dání tí wọ́n fi tanlẹ̀ ká tí wọ́n fi ń pè ní ilẹ̀ Ifẹ̀ lónìí. Ẹ ṣe púpọ̀ láàrin yẹn. Ó dá níbo la wá ti ìbéèrè sì pọ̀ ní orí yẹn náà mo fẹ́ sáré mu ní kí wá báwo la ṣe wá bára wa ta fi wá ń jẹ́ Yorùbá.
Yoruba say near is a recent names in one year. There is one myth, one tradition about that. I was doing my research in 19th century history. And when I was in Ikinu, I was directed to go and see an old Oba in a town called Obagun, a small town called Obagun near Ikinu, very close to Ikinu. The Oba was a very old man, but still alert and knowledgeable. Had traveled a lot all over Yoruba land in his earlier years. So he told me that we have been called Yoruba for a long time, and the name originated in the fact that we Yoruba, from about the 4th century AD, we have been trading beyond Yoruba land to places like the country that is now known as Mali and Mauritania, and so on the Niger, the upper Niger. Àwọn èèyàn wa gbéra ní Ifẹ̀, wọ́n travel through ilẹ̀ àwọn Ìbàrìbá, then pick up the Niger and follow it until they came to the trading centers on the Niger, especially the trading town of Gao. And later, other towns developed in that area, Jene and then Timbuktu. And that ibẹ̀ ni wọ́n ti bẹ̀ sí pè wá ní Yorùbá. Maybe as early as the 9th century or earlier. So mo wá ní ta ló ń pè wá ní Yorùbá níbẹ̀? Bí àwọn tó wá trade níbẹ̀ náà ni kò sẹ́ni tó lè sọ bóyá àwọn the native people níbẹ̀. Only but nǹkan tí òun gbọ́ lọ́mọdé ni wípé ìdí tán fi ń pè wá ní Yorùbá ni wípé we are a people from deep forests of the southwest, of the southeast, from the deep forests. And so the name Yoruba probably means the people from the deep southern forests. Pé ibẹ̀ náà ti bẹ̀ sí pè wá. Wọ́n ní bọ̀tà àwọn kan sọ pé àwọn Fúlàní oníkú ló ń jẹ́ Fúlàní. Fúlàní ò tẹ̀ tí wá sílẹ̀ West Africa rárá gbà wọ́n yẹn. Àwọn Fúlàní ò dé West Africa until about the 16th century. Àwa Yorùbá ti ń jẹ́ Yorùbá ní 9th century, 10th century, 11th century. Àwọn Fúlàní wo? Àwọn Fúlàní kan jẹ́ ìwọ ni. Then a few months later, I was doing my research also in Owo with an old man, Chief Sachere of Owo, Chief Adetunla, who at the time was regarded as the oldest living Yoruba man. The oldest living Yoruba man, Chief Adetunla of Owo, the Sachere of Owo. I interviewed him for 3 days running. He too was an old man, but very bright. Ó ní àwa tí ń jẹ́ Yorùbá látijọ́ tó ti pẹ́ ọmọ. Àwa tí ń jẹ́ Yorùbá látijọ́ tó ti pẹ́. Long before the founding of the Yoruba kingdoms, long before the founding of Ile-Ife as a city, not of Ile-Ife, not of Ife as an area of human settlement, but the city of Ife. That's a different thing. We know that occurred in the 9th century AD. Àwa tí ń trade káàkiri ń gbà wọ́n yẹn. Àwọn èèyàn dẹ̀ ti ń pè wá ní Yorùbá. Only long before the creation of Benin Kingdom, long before the creation of our kingdom, long before the creation of any of the Yoruba kingdom, our Yoruba. So, and we have a written evidence in about 1615, one Islamic scholar who lived on the Upper Niger wrote in a book in which he mentioned the name Yoruba. That's the first written evidence we have of the name Yoruba, and that was long before the Fulani showed up in West Africa at all. The Fulani are not an African people. They originated in the Middle East. They migrated to northwestern Africa, the homeland of the Barbars. They were driven from there, and they finally coagulated in the area of the Futajalon Mountains. And from the Futajalon Mountains, they began to migrate eastwards until they came to Hausa land in the late 18th century. So that's their story briefly. Because they claim to make about the history of any people in West Africa to true. They don't know, they were not part of it.
Daddy ẹ ṣeun sà.
Mo tún fẹ́ béèrè kan kí Yétí tó béèrè kó tó bá máa béèrè. Àwọn tó wá láti bóyá bíi Ìjẹ̀bú Èkìtì parapọ̀ lómọdé tẹ́ ti sọ̀tàn yẹn rí, kí ló dé tí wọ́n ṣe kára wọn sí pé àwọn náà wá láti ilé ìfẹ́ tó bá máa wò ń sìn kì í ṣe Ifẹ̀ ilé yìí ní Ifẹ̀ tí ẹ ń sọ nípa ẹ̀. Bóyá fẹ́ kẹta. Àwọn bóyá bíi Oǹdó, Èkìtì, àwọn Èkìtì parapọ̀, àwọn Ògùn, àwọn bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn tí wọ́n sọ pé àwọn òkè ṣọ ya àwọn pé àwọn òkè ṣọmọ Oòduà. Báwo wà láti.
Sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ kò sẹ́ni tó lè sọ pé àwa ọkùnrin ṣọmọ Oòduà. Nígbà tí politics bá dé ìsọkúsọ ní kálukú lè sọ. But no, I have never met any Yoruba group tó ń sọ pé àwọn ọkùnrin ṣọmọ Oòduà. I have never. And there is no Yoruba town or village in existence that I have not visited in my research. There is none, especially in Yoruba land in Nigeria. And Yoruba land too in Benin Republic. There is no town or village of the Yoruba people that I have not visited. I have never encountered any group. There is a group in Benin Republic, but they are not manifestly Yoruba. They are the Egun. The Egun. Our Yoruba man kawamora wa, but our man so pe won kin shara wa. That yes, want to add darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. And in towns like Porto Novo, that is Ajashe, the ancient kingdom of Ajashe. Porto Novo is a French founded settlement. We are talking of the old towns near the coast. Àwọn Ẹ̀gùn tán wà ńbẹ̀. So ẹ bá dá ẹgbẹ́ ọmọ Yorùbá sílẹ̀ wọ́n á join yín. But ẹ bá sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀ pé ọmọ Odùduwà wọ́n á bá yín jà àrò ẹja dẹ́ láàrin yín. We founded in 2019 a group called Ẹgbẹ́ Ọmọ Odùduwà. I was the person invited from Nigeria to come and inaugurate the organization. We called it Ẹgbẹ́ Ọmọ Odùduwà. Àwọn Ègùn were joined later. Wọ́n dẹ̀ sọ pé àwọn ọkùnrin ṣọmọ Odùduwà. So we had to change the name of the organization to Ẹgbẹ́ Ìṣọ̀kan Yorùbá. Ìṣọ̀kan Yorùbá là ń jẹ́ báyìí mi ní patron wọn. Wọ́n á lè pé lẹ́gbẹ́ ọmọ Odùduwà mọ́ because a major part of us sọ pé àwọn ọkùnrin ṣọmọ Odùduwà. That's the only people tí mo mọ̀ tán sọ pé àwọn ọkùnrin ṣọmọ Odùduwà.
Okay, Yeti, ẹ jẹ́ kí
Yeah,
Yeti Queen, ó
yeah,
yá
Kalesa.
ìbéèrè yín.
Pẹ̀lẹ́ sà.
Ẹ ṣé.
Yeti ni orúkọ mi sà. Daddy ẹ jọ̀ọ́ sà, màá fẹ́ approach me from the màá fẹ́ approach àwọn questions me from the intellectual perspective. Mi ò lè
Very
fẹ́
good, very good. Because that's where I belong. I don't,
bẹ́ẹ̀ni bẹ́ẹ̀ni. Yes, yes sà, ẹ ṣeun gan sà. And mo dẹ̀, I'm happy pé ẹ understand nǹkan tí mo ń try láti sọ sà, because ìgbà míì sometimes ó dáa ká máa base gbogbo àwọn gbogbo nǹkan tá a bá fẹ́ sọ lórí fact and figures. So inú mi dùn pé ẹ ti sọ nípa ẹ ti try láti link Yorùbá mọ́ gbogbo side bíi Middle East, later evidence tún wá lórí ọ̀rọ̀ DNA. Happy to hear that. But my main question is, mo fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti Ifẹ̀. I am not talking about the recent Ifẹ̀. Nípa old Ifẹ̀ tó ń sọ yẹn. Is it possible kí gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá kó originate láti Ilé Ifẹ̀? Tó bá jẹ́ ṣe pé ó possible sir, ṣé ẹ lè fún mi ní reference? Òun ni mo ṣe sọ pé màá fẹ́ approach it from the intellectual perspective sir. Ẹ ṣeun gan sir.
We are mixing two different layers of information. There is the Oduduwa, the founder of the human race, the founder of the Yoruba nation, hundreds of thousands of years ago. That's one. Then in the 9th century AD, tens of thousands of years after that, the people of the small settlements, our Yoruba ní ìlú, àgbé ìlú, a máa ń gbé ìletò kéékèèké ni. Bá a tẹ̀ súnmọ́ra ní join. Rárá, kálukú ń ṣe tiẹ̀ lọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni.
Okay.
And I develop a habit kan wípé ká máa súnmọ́ra. Tí omi dáadáa kan bá wà níbì kan àbí oko kan wà níbẹ̀ tó protect and so on, gbogbo àwa dé síbẹ̀. Àwọn ní in the Ife forest, there were about 16 such 20 such small settlements. Only a short distance from one another. Gbogbo wọn la mọ̀, our historians have to find the original locations of those places. Ìlóròmù, Ìdẹ̀ta, Òkè Ọjà, and so on. We have done research and established the original locations of those, most of those locations were by. Then some, in the 9th century AD, something happened that got them to agree to come together. Ogun ló ń jà wọ́n. Kì í ṣogun láti ta àwọn fúnra wọn ń bára wọn jagun. Their farmlands were touching, and that was creating boundary disputes and fighting and so on. And it just went on and on and on and on for almost 100 years in the 9th century. Ni wọ́n wá lucky ní Fáwá. The only way to stop these wars, endlessly. Into one single ìlú. A ò ní ìlú before Ilé Ifẹ̀. Nǹkan tá a ní ni Èlú. Èlú is a scattering of tiny little villages in a location. That's what is called Èlú. Ẹ má ṣe ìlú mọ́. Ẹ ṣe ìlú. And so they agreed and appointed a young man who had distinguished himself during the wars as their first ruler. And he stood on the hill where the Afin is now and began to point in the direction where any Loromu Vilemawa, any Okaja Vilemawa, any Deta Vilemawa, any Kaneka, and so on and so forth. and a town emerged. The first town of the Yoruba people. Okay?
Okay.
Now,
Daddy,
this
sir. So that means Daddy, we've been able to. Okay, sir.
This young man who was made their ruler and was crowned the ultimate symbol of authority. We want to surrender to the Oba of the new town, which they then called Ile-Ife, the home of all people of Ife. So Ife is different from Ile-Ife. Ife is the whole area. Ile-Ife is this town that they created. And this young man who was made the first king of Ile-Ife ruled for a long time. And he proved to be a phenomenally good king. Umanyan Kumara, Arape Umanyan Kumara ló jẹ́ kí Ile-Ife survive. He was extremely good at gathering people, at honoring them, at making them feel welcome and belonging. So in his old age, the priests and elders then decided, and they gave him the name Oduduwa as a name for honoring him. That was not his original name. He didn't just, Mo bèrè lọ́wọ́ bàbá ọba Adékánṣọ́lá de ọlọ́ba àgbọ̀n of ọba Àgbọ̀nnáìkè pé kí ni original name ẹ̀? Kò sí ẹni tó máa sọ fún mi o. Wọ́n ní wọ́n sì rẹ́ni tó mọ̀ o. Wọ́n sì rẹ́ni tó mọ orúkọ yẹn o. Ṣùgbọ́n kò sí ibi tí mo ti lè rí ẹnìkan kan tó lè pè mí wọnú yàrá kó lọ whisper sí mi. It will never happen. So stop asking for it. So we have two Oduduwas in our history. The Oduduwa who became the father of the founders of Yoruba towns. Once you found Ife, then once you found all the other Yoruba towns, some place we go from Ife. Gather one we can replicate that here and then create a new town. That's how we became the most urbanized people in Africa. Town after town. Between the 9th century and the 16th century, we have built hundreds of towns in our forests and become one of the most urbanized peoples in the world. According to the traditions of the Ife Palace, it was Oduduwa Funara, Oduduwa, not the original Oduduwa, but the Oduduwa, the king. On those start or found the local Christian. In his old age, one look gather one chiefs at one more grandchildren around him and said, and isn't it a beautiful place? Oh, yeah, can they create things like this all over Yoruba land? So, and your mom and your chiefs go out and found and establish towns like this in different parts of Yoruba land. Go to any Yoruba town and ask for the story of their origin. Go to Oyo-Ile and ask for the story of how Oyo-Ile was founded. Go to Ilorin, go to Ado-Ekiti, go to almost all towns of Yoruba land. They were all originated in the years 9th century to 16th century. By the time that the first Europeans began to come to the coast of West Africa in about 1470 AD, we already had tens of towns all over Yoruba land, each of them walled Most of them were. We have written evidence of that. Yeah. One trader, Ocheco Pereira, one Portuguese trader who was who visited Lagos, wrote in his records, wípé òun ò penetrate ilẹ̀ Yorùbá o, òun ò kọjá Èkó. Ṣùgbọ́n I learned that there is a town about 10 leagues into the interior called Gibu. He wrote it as Geebou, Gibu. That's Ijebu. It's surrounded by a wonderful wall. The wall that he spoke about, the wall of Ijebu, the Eredo, is one of the greatest creations of man in the ancient times. One Professor Darling from a university in Scotland came to do research on it in the 1990s. And his record is unbelievable. I wrote an article about it. And for years, people were bombarding me with questions and so on. Only in terms of earth and rock that was moved to create the Great Pyramid of Egypt and the Eredo, the Jebo, the city wall, in terms of the earth and rocks that were moved, the Eredo was much bigger than the Great Pyramid. That till today, parts of the Eredo are still visible in space. So many Yoruba towns have the same walls. Or for instance, in the 17th century, under a young king called Oshoboye, went out and built a great wall, Tigobo Yoruba long wall, around the wall. Ila for some time was known as Ila Yara. Yara dawa Yoruba ń pe walls wọ̀nyẹn. Yara. Ila Yara. So most of our towns have great walls. In 1825 December, Clapperton entered Oyoile. He was amazed. The city wall linked with rocks around and so on. And he said his estimate was that the circumference of the city of Oyoile was at least 15 miles. That's what he wrote. So these are written records. No myth, nothing. Àwọn òyìnbó tó kọ́ dé Ifẹ̀ ní 19th century missionaries and so on wọ́n ní. Kíní kan yà wọ́n lẹ́nu. Báwọn ṣe wá tán jẹ́ òyìnbó, we are the first white people to ever come to this ancient town called Ile-Ife. But we are treated as if we are sons of Ile-Ife who went away a long time ago and have come back to honor our fatherland. That's how the people in Ile-Ife treat us. We are white. We've never been to their country before. This is our first visit. But they treat us as sons of the land who went away long time ago and have come back to honor their fatherland, their original home. David Hindra, the missionary who stationed himself in Ibadan later, when he first visited Ile-Ife in 1855, people, because white man won, so a large crowd of people followed And he went to the palace. They showed him the way to the palace, and the chiefs and people gathered. And he preached the gospel message to them. Come back by idolatry and worship, and accept the living God in Jesus Christ, and so on and so forth. Oh, preach here, you know. Then got to the Sorotan, Ojoko. Oane, the only was there, but you know, behind the screen. Oane, Afeki, Awanraife, no phone answer. So the chiefs conferred briefly and appointed a young chief to answer him. And here is what the young chief said. Listen to me carefully. This is what the young chief said. He said, white man, welcome to our land. This is the origin of your people too, and you are welcome to it. The stream is always clear at its source. The stream is always clear at its source. But as it flows away from the source and crosses all sorts of country and gathers all sorts of mud and leaves and dirt, it acquires different kinds of color. It's no longer clear like at the source. All religions started from here in Ife. And what you have come to preach to us today is one of the versions that developed in a distant part of the world where you come from. But the origin of religion is here in Ife. So we thank you for coming. That's 1855. Any more questions?
Yeah, Daddy Eshongo, sir, I have another question. I'm very sorry, sir. Mo wa curious, go, sir. Sorry, Shemokini, o da argument gan le lánàá. So ẹ má bínú sí mi, sir, pé ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ bá mi fi sùúrù ṣe, sir, kí n fi béèrè àwọn question yẹn.
I'm not angry.
Mo
I'm not
dúpẹ́
angry.
lọ́wọ́.
My job is to teach the
Yeah.
history of the Yoruba people.
Ẹ ṣeun gan, sir. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín, sir, pé you've been able to establish pé everybody kọ́ wà all fọ́ká láyé ìgbà yẹn ni, kò ń ṣe pé they were together until kọ́ tó decide pé wọ́n fẹ́ wá put together. So mo dẹ̀ believe pé gbogbo yẹn ó clear sí àwọn tó wà lórí TikTok pé the truth has been established. So to need láti máa argue more. And Daddy, that will take me on to the next question. You made mention of Gebu, that is Ijebu. Ẹ má bínú sáà, èmi náà kàn ránṣẹ́ àwọn light research kan díẹ̀díẹ̀, òun ló ṣe máa jẹ́ kí n wà curious there. Mi ò tí ì take it serious náà, mi ò ṣe tí ì jẹ́ kí n reach conclusion kankan, but tí bá ní time ni mo máa ń ṣe, mi ò rush. Ṣé rí ibi tí mo ti ń ṣe research yẹn lọ́wọ́ sà? I stumbled across pé mo rí pé ó dà pé Ìjẹ̀bú has been in existence 500 years prior to the colonial.
As of the time.
Colonial to this. Ṣé wá rí ibi tí ọmọ.
Jẹ́ kí nǹkan tó sọ tó bá ṣọ̀rọ̀ èjì Ìjẹ̀bú. As of the time tí àwọn Europeans wá to the coast, not colonialism, talking about traders and explorers and so on. Ìjẹ̀bú had been in existence for more than 500 years. Ìjẹ̀bú was already an ancient city by the time the first Europeans came in the late 15th century. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Ṣé wá rí sàìbọn wá rí pé àwọn kan máa ń sọ pé Ìjẹ̀bú wá láti Sudan. Ibi tí mo ti wá ń ṣe research yẹn sà, mo wá rí pé Ìjẹ̀bú were the first to kọ́kọ́ ní currency. I'm not talking about paper currency. nǹkan tó fi ń ṣe owó ní time yẹn tó fi ń trade. Mo rí pé they were the first láti trade pẹ̀lú àwọn British, and they have always told us pé Èkó ló kọ́kọ́ trade pẹ̀lú àwọn British. Mo wá rí pé pathway ọ̀nà kan wà tó ṣe pé wọ́n ń gbà bíi trader route tó ṣe pé ó ń gbé wọn lọ sí gbogbo sáìdì ọ̀nà East Africa. Òun ni wọ́n ṣe ń sọ pé àwọn Ìjẹ̀bú wá láti Sudan, but from my findings mi ò rí nǹkan tó jọ bẹ́ẹ̀ sà.
Kì í ṣàwọn nìkan ló lọ síbẹ̀ yẹn.
Ṣé sà?
Ìjẹ̀bú, nǹkan tó jẹ́ kí Ìjẹ̀bú Òde tètè da ìlú ńlá ni pé it found itself at the T-junction of a coastal route that went along the coast of West Africa. Àwọn tó the pioneer that western route were not the Ìjẹ̀bú, they were the Ìlàjẹ. The Ìlàjẹ discovered how to make salt from seawater and some mangrove trees. Yeah. And so they became traders in salt along the West African coast and also into the interior of Yoruba land. Ìjẹ̀bú Òde wá wà ní ibi T-junction, the junction of the T-junction of that old route along the coast and a major route to the north, to Ife, to the interior of Yoruba land. And Ìjẹ̀bú Òde just became a big trading center. Àwọn èèyàn láti what is now the Sudan, they used to trade to Yoruba land, and later we too traded to their homelands. By the 16th, 17th centuries, our Yoruba in large numbers, Laman traded northwards. Northwest was to modern Mali and Mauritania and Guinea. Eastwards to the land of the Kanuri on the Lake Chad, and then from there to Sudan, South Sudan. And today, there are more than 2 million Yoruba people in Sudan and South Sudan. And our people also traded to the Upper Congo. So, àwọn traders tó ń wá from distant places, tó bá ní àwọn wà ní Ìjẹ̀bú Òde, they are right. But to say àwọn là ń found the Ìjẹ̀bú Òde is rubbish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Daddy. Inú mi dùn gan san pé ẹ bá wa clear kínní, because it's an aching question everywhere. Because nǹkan tó ń sọ nìyẹn. Èmi náà ní àbíṣẹ́ mi ni mo ṣe nǹkan tí mo rí ọ̀tọ̀ ni, because fact and figure làwa fẹ́. So God bless you, sir. Now, ibi tí mo tún ti wá ń ṣe research yẹn lọ, sir, mo rí pé ó dẹ̀ wí pé Lagosians and Ogun State in general, ó dẹ̀ pé they are the same people. Ó dẹ̀ pé wọ́n fi artificial border sí àárín wọn ni, sir. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ Daddy, sir, ṣé reference wà fún nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn? Ṣé òótọ́ ni àbí kò kì í ṣe òótọ́? Tó bá jẹ́ ṣe pé òótọ́ ni, sir.
Àwa Yorùbá, the body language and psychological makeup of all Yoruba people ni pé àwa la ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá, àwa la ní ilẹ̀ Oòduà, àwa la ní gbogbo ẹ̀. The Yoruba man may belong to a kingdom, but tó bá ní good reason láti relocate to another kingdom, ó ń lọ nìyẹn, kò sí nǹkan tó dá dúró. The result is that we are a profoundly intermixed people. So I started to look into our Oriki at some point. It's unbelievable, the depth of history in the Oriki. We are all interlocked. Mo interview the Owa of Igbajo in 1964, Oba Famodun, the Owa of Igbajo. Only that ọmọdé lòun ti ní interest nínú ọ̀rọ̀ the inner unity of the Yoruba people as a people. Only tó bá dé ẹni Yoruba town kò ṣòro rí. Wàá rí wípé àwọn ará bíi oríṣiríṣi ibi náà tí wọ́n wá tán wá end up wá ń jẹ́ ìlú kan yìí. Only so there is no pure, that's the way he put it. Only there is no pure Yoruba town. Only there is no Yoruba town. This is an exclusive Ijebu town. This is an exclusive Ekiti town. This is an exclusive of your town. Only there is no such town anywhere in Yoruba land. All our towns are mixtures of little bits and pieces from all over Yoruba land. Yeah. He said, I like to quote his final statement. We are one people in many, many ways. Only to bára ma èèyàn kan tó ń sọ̀rọ̀ pé Ìjẹ̀bú lòun tó ń pariwo àbí Èkìtì lòun àbí Ẹ̀gbá lòun àbí Ọ̀yọ́ lòun tó bá ń pariwo pàràpàràpàràpàràpàrà. Okay, sọ pé kó slow down. Ó sọ a little story fún ẹ from his family tree. Only tó bá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ ẹ̀yin méjèèjì á bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí rẹ́rìn-ín sìn. A wá rí i pé gbogbo Ọ̀yọ́ ni mí, Ìjẹ̀bú ni.
Ẹ má bínú látọ̀dọ̀ Ọlọ́run ló ti wá o. Ó dà kí nẹ́tíwọ̀kì wọn rí bákan.
Bàbá mi gbẹ̀dú.
Yé bàbá.
Ẹlẹ́sà, ẹjọ́ mo fẹ́ sáré share light kan sí nǹkan tí ìyàwó ayé tí wọ́n sọ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ wípé kékeré tó fi sọ pé fọ́ká tí bàbá ń try láti sọ fún wa ni wípé nínú ilẹ̀ Yorùbá bọ̀ ó ní nǹkan tó ń pè ní ìgà ni wọ́n ń kọ́ bọ̀ ìgà yẹn wọn ò jọ súnmọ́ra wọn. Tẹ́ bá náà nínú tó sì ń pàwọ́ àtàjọ ọmọ Yorùbá jẹ́ nǹkan tó jẹ́ pé a máa ń ní boundary. Lóòótọ́ a lè má pàlà sí bọ̀ boundary wa yẹn òun níbi tó yẹn bàbá ń try láti wá sọ. Ìgbà tó wá di pọ́n rí pé ilé wọn yẹn ó ń bọ́ síra wọn ni wọ́n sọ wá pé kí ló máa ṣẹlẹ̀ ní pé kí wọ́n.
Daddy ẹ ti mute sir, daddy ẹ ti mute. Daddy ẹ ti mute, wọ́n máa sọ, daddy ẹ ti mute.
Mute ara yín, mute ara yín sir.
Wọ́n máa sọ lọ́bẹ̀ yẹn ni, ẹ kì í sáré pọ̀ bá lọ, wọ́n ti mute ni. Wọ́n á máa.
Ló ṣèwà tí mute sí yìí ni. Hello, ẹ bá ara mute bàbá ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ń bẹ̀ yẹn.
Ẹ kì í sáré pè wọ́n. Now we all agree that we come from Ile-Ife now.
Bóyá wọ́n dẹ̀ make call lọ́wọ́.
Kò sí nǹkan tó jọ bẹ́ẹ̀, ẹ má change nǹkan tí bàbá sọ. Wọ́n ní gbogbo ẹ̀ fọ́ká ni kò tí ì sí nǹkan tó jọ bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹ má change the history. Ẹ bí bẹ́ẹ̀, ẹ jẹ́ kí bàbá sọ wọn sọ.
Ẹ jẹ́ kí mi kọ́kọ́ ṣàlàyé nǹkan tẹ́mi ń ṣàlàyé kó tó ní pọ́n cut me off. Nǹkan tí bàbá ń try láti sọ ni wípé ó ní ìgà tí olúkálukú ní tó yé yín. Gbogbo àtọwọ́ rí pé ìgà yẹn ń fa wàhálà níbi tí wọ́n sọ pé àwọn tẹ̀dó sí. Ṣóyé yín bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn bọ́ wọn ò tí wàá sọ precise.
Ilé-Ifẹ̀. Yeah. So bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn.
Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ mo fẹ́ béèrè question kan. Ọba Èkó Olúbùsì àbí Elégùṣì ó ní ará Èkó ó ní wọ́n ń ṣe Yorùbá. Ẹ ṣe lè bá tọ̀mọ́lẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ yẹn.
Àwọn tẹ bá kálẹ̀ ti pay attention àìrí átíkù kan tí mo fi dá ọba Èkó lóhùn, I think in 2021. What happened was that I was invited to a book launching by Yawo, former ambassador of the United States to Nigeria. Ọba Èkó dẹ̀ wà ń bẹ̀. Ọba Èkó máa dìde, ó máa sọ̀rọ̀. Àwọn ò kì í ṣe Yorùbá. Benin làwọn ti wá nǹkan. But it would be rude for me to be answering him there. So the next morning, I called 2 or 3 newspapers around me and I gave them the story. I sent them a message to him in order to keep quiet. I repeated the story of how Edo interest came to Lagos. It's a matter of origin. Àwọn Àwórì ló lè kó àwọn Àwórì section of the Yoruba people. There is the Ekiti section, there is the Ijebu section, there is the Egba section, there is the, and so on. There is the Àwórì section. Àwọn Àwórì ló ní Èkó. Àwọn ló dá ìlú yẹn sílẹ̀. Ìgbà tí trade bẹ̀rẹ̀ along the coast. Like many of the Àwórì left their towns, like Isheri, Ota, Adodo, and so on, and came to live in Lagos and made Lagos a bigger place, and the ruling family from Isheri shifted its base completely and took it to the island and created the kingdom of Eko. So it has nothing to do, it's not Ijebu or anything. Yeah. Àwọn kan wà lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ tán encourage irú nǹkan wọ̀nyẹn, people like this lawyer. Don't encourage Edo làwọn nǹkan, but they are losers. They can't. It's a journey without a goal.
Sir, ó ti ní kọ́ ẹ̀kọ́ tó fẹ́ béèrè nígbà tá a wà ní school a máa ń sọ pé ọba àbíní ọmọ Yorùbá ni àwọn Bìní dẹ̀ máa ń deny Yorùbá.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni mo sọ́nà níjọ́sí yìí. What happened was with the ruler of Ile-Ife. In his old age, àwọn ará Edo, àwọn elders Edo forest, wọ́n ránṣẹ́ wá bá ní Ifẹ̀ pé àwọn ní trouble nílùú wọn o. Àwọn èèyàn wa kàn jà káàkiri inú igbó ni, kò sí anybody tó máa bá ṣe máa settle wọn down. Pé àwọn need the help ọba of Ifẹ̀ kó jọ kó bá wọn ṣe káwọn náà lè settle bíi ti Ifẹ̀ yìí. So he called one of his grandsons, a prince called Oromenya, and asked him to go with them, full of help one. Now Oromenya was a warrior prince, and our model like Ekuko, so large numbers of people surrounded him. We are told that on his way to Benin, tí bàbá kan ò bá lọ mọ́mọ́ ẹ̀ pamọ́ sóko ọmọ yẹn á dọ́gbọ́n àṣàbà Ọ̀rànmíyàn lọ. So àwọn parents máa ń lọ mú sons wọn pamọ́ sóko kán mọ́ bàbá Ọ̀rànmíyàn sá lọ. Ọ̀rànmíyàn came to the Edo forest. Àwọn tó ṣe bá sọ̀rọ̀ láàrin àwọn wọ̀nyẹn ó bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀. Àwọn tí ò gbà ó declare war against wọn. Ó dẹ̀ subdue wọn perfectly. Then he established a kind of kingdom. Exactly like the Ife kingdom. Because in Kantomani, they ruled one for many years, probably about 20 years. Then suddenly one day he told them, listen, I'm not Edo, I'm Yoruba, I belong to Ife. Ife me. Presume láti máa rule ẹ̀yin. Language yín gan díẹ̀ ló mọ̀ sọmọ. So I'm going back home to my people in Ife. So then there was a crisis. Kí ni ká wá ṣe? Odùbáwá establish a kingdom. Àròpé ọmọ akúkú bá rule ẹni òun ò lè dúró. Okay, so Dutch elders then held a meeting. Okay, Shebi oti bi makala anyway. Omanya is already on my name, not in document about. It's about 16, 17 years old. Ṣé tá a bá béèrè lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀ ṣé ó lè jẹ́ kí a mú ọmọ yẹn kó jọba wa kó má mú lọ padà sí Ifẹ̀? Ṣé wọ́n dẹ̀ wá béèrè lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀? Okay, that's okay. In any case, it's one of you. Was born in a Edo mother for me, and you know, so it's one of you. Is just to settle, to help you settle down. So they crowned the young boy, Ewuare, as the first Oba of Benin. And all the Benin kings since then have been descendants of Ewuare. That's why Edo people claim that their Oba is from Ife, is Yoruba. Yeah.
Daddy, ẹjọ́ mo ní question o Gbẹ̀du ẹjọ́ mo sì ní question ẹjọ́ ẹ má bínú.
Daddy, I recognize Baba wa Síjúadé ní àárín wa.
Ẹgbẹ́ tó bèrè yẹn voice yẹn ò tó ti yẹn jẹ́ ká gbọ́ nǹkan tó fẹ́ bèrè.
Mo tún Baba wa Síjúadé.
No. Jẹ́ kí obìnrin tó sọ pé mo sì ní question yẹn jẹ́ kó bèrè question.
Mo fẹ́ ká acknowledge Baba wa Síjúadé wọ́n wà láàrin wa ní ẹ̀ka àbọ̀sá ni wàsà. So tí wàá bá ti sọ̀rọ̀ tán àwọn náà tún bá wa fi ẹsẹ̀ fa ẹni tí Ifá sọ ẹni tí Ifá sọ nípa bá ìṣẹ̀wà àwọn àbàwọ̀ ṣe káàbọ̀ sáà ni wàsà. And then pẹ̀lú ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ gani sà. Then pẹ̀lú ṣíbí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ gani tí ẹ káàbọ̀ sáà ni Ẹgbẹ́ládé JP ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ káàbọ̀ sáà ni wa. So iye tí ẹ lè tẹ̀síwájú.
Daddy, ẹ ṣeun gan sir. Mo really appreciate the effort yín pé gbogbo nǹkan tẹ́ ṣe lẹ́nìí at least and it is good pé fact and figure ó ń jáde. Daddy, mo tún wá ní question kan sir. Ṣé rí nígbà argument yẹn lánàá, that argument was so intense yesterday because I was looking at it from nǹkan tá discussed lánàá from fact and figures lèmi fẹ́. Daddy, imagine pé tí n bá lọ fún conference ẹ dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé ẹ̀yin tó fẹ́ lọ fún conference ẹ máa ti prepare papers tẹ fẹ́ present ńbẹ̀ gbogbo nǹkan tẹ dẹ̀ máa present ńbẹ̀ with proof ni sir. Mo dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé Daddy ẹ understand gbogbo nǹkan tí mo ń try láti sọ sir. Ṣé ó possible ṣá, and this is my question, ṣé ó possible kí èèyàn máa sọ wípé Ifá ló dá ilẹ̀ Yorùbá lẹ̀ wípé Ifá ló bí àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá máa ọmọ Yorùbá originate láti ìdí Ifá àbí all those things. Mo máa ń béèrè fún fact pé ṣé ó possible ṣá pé gbogbo àwọn nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ìṣẹ̀ṣe is a religion just like we have Christianity and Islam. Èèyàn kan náà ló dá àwọn religion yẹn sílẹ̀. Báwo ni a máa ṣe wá sọ pé ẹni tó dá religion yẹn sílẹ̀ o religion yẹn fún rẹ̀ ló bí gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá? Daddy ẹ jọ̀ọ́ sà ṣé irú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ṣó ṣe present ní conference tí n bá lọ fún conference pa Daddy?
Babalẹ̀ kò gbọ́ mi. Àwa Yorùbá ti exist for thousands of years before the knowledge of God emerged among us. Olódùmarè, the founder of all. Ó pẹ́ tá a ti wà láyé ká tó come to know God. Ara knowing God yẹn ni àti wá develop the picture of our relationship of God that goes as follows. The Almighty God created us Yoruba and gradually revealed himself to us until we were able to know much about him. And ara nǹkan tá a wá mọ̀ nípa ẹ̀ ni wípé he is above all, beyond all. Àmọ̀ yẹn, àmọ̀ pé ó dẹ̀ wá create, and therefore reaching him directly for the ordinary human is an impossibility. For that reason, knowing our weakness, knowing that fact, God created small deities to minister to us as intermediary between us and him. And Yoruba believe in him, sorry. And there are many of such intermediaries. Some people say 401, some people say 801, but we call them Igbanumole. Irumole. Igbanumole Otun, Igbanumole Osi. And each of them has its own particular department in the life of humans. So it is not a chaotic thing. Each one has his particular department in the relationship between God and man. Ifa is the word of God to guide man in the way that they should go. Is that the direct word of God, and is infallible. That's what our religion says. And for a start, the wisdom that was embedded in Ife was just scattered around. But in about 500 BC, a very powerful religious leader among us gathered a team around him, and they sorted out all the pieces of Ifa wisdom into what we now call Odu Ifa. That was done in about 500 BC, before Christ. That's the story of our spiritual life. So, Ifa kolo biwa, ati walaye kolon to reveal Ifa siwa, koto fun wa ni Ifa, koto yewa. That is it.
Thank you, Daddy. God bless you.
Are you satisfied with the question now?
Yes, I am. Daddy,
now the question is this: that there is Ife.
About
yes.
Hold on. Omoboriowo, hold on. Gbogbo ẹni tí wà lórí TikTok. Anybody bá fẹ́ béèrè question, ẹ má make it too loud. Ẹ kọ́ ọ̀kẹ́ unmute ara yín ní kọ̀ọ̀kan tí wọ́n fẹ́ béèrè question lórí topic yẹn jọ. Ẹ kí ẹ máa sọ̀rọ̀ yín lọ bàbá.
Àwọn lórí TikTok àbí?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni,
all right, Daddy.
Don't suddenly change the rules. This is a family discussion. And to
Yeti is already clear with his question. Any other question, please? Omeyo, do you have any question? Then I want to Omeyo, your question, please.
ẹ ṣeun sá bàbá mi kò ní sún yín kò ní rẹ̀yìn lágbára Ọlọ́run mo dẹ̀ kí gbogbo everybody tó ń gbóhùn mi káàkiri àgbáyé nǹkan tí mi fẹ́ béèrè nísìnyí ni pé sá báwo ni Yorùbá national anthem tó yẹ pé à ń recite yìí báwo ló ṣe wáyé sá torí wáyé ni pé kò sí tá bá ń béèrè lórí ọ̀rọ̀ pé kí ni originated Yorùbá wọ́n máa béèrè pé báwo ni anthem ṣe come up tó jẹ́ pé nǹkan tí gbogbo wa ń kà nìyẹn gẹ́gẹ́ bí anthem Yorùbá so tẹ́ bá lè bá a clear ṣá ṣe sá.
Ṣẹ́rìngbà tá a dá UPN sílẹ̀ ní 1978 a kọ anthem kan fún Nàìjíríà. Kì í ṣe Yorùbá la kọ fún Nàìjíríà. Tis a duty that we owe to our great motherland, to enhance her and to boost her in the eyes of all the world. Egalitarianism is our national watchword. Equality of good fortune must be to each sure reward. Up, Nigeria, and take your rightful place. It's your birthright and your destiny, Africa's bright light to be. Onitawa called Tafi Open the first national convention wa lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ní 1978 nìyẹn tí gbogbo wa ń kọ tá à ń jó. Bàbá wa Awólọ́wọ̀ àti a few of us la jókòó lóru nílé wọn ní Àpápá tá a put it together tí Ògèdèngbé bàbá wa Ògúndé tá lọ pé wá tó kó àwọn báńdẹ̀ wá tán wá bá fìlù sí and so on. We did not write it for Yoruba, we wrote it for Nigeria. However, in the era of the disasters of the Abacha era, when the Yoruba nation was in danger, and people created a ferry to stand up and fight for the Yoruba people, Igbanyeni, somebody resident in Oshogbo, some very creative person, láàrin wa, ló wá tọ̀nà sí orin Yorùbá tá à ń kọ lénìí. That's how it came into being. Iṣẹ́ wa fún ilẹ̀ wa, fún ilẹ̀ ibi. It's just the Yoruba. It turned it into a Yoruba song in both language and purpose and meaning. So, bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn.
Ẹ sà ẹ jẹ́ má bínú sà ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì sà. Then orí olókun tí ó dà pà ń lò as a symbol yìí, because àwọn ẹlòmíì wọ́n ń kàn tẹ̀ sí nǹkan mi wá níbi àpò òṣìṣà ni. Ẹlòmíì á ní pé wọ́n ṣàpè lórúkọ kí ló dé tó yẹ pé orí olókun ṣe wá ń wà nínú fúláàgì Yorùbá nation.
Ṣé ẹ rí nǹkan tá à ń pè lórí olókun? Àwa là ń pè lórí olókun. Àwọn tó create ẹ ò pé lórúkọ kankan, just a piece of art tó ń ṣe. Wọ́n sì ń ṣe kinní wọ̀nyẹn till 1910 tí òyìnbó kan tó ń pè fún ní Frobenius tó wá tó ya fọ́tò ibi tán tí ń ṣe ó wà nínú ìwé mi tán ṣe publish. Àwọn bàbá wa developed the art of that naturalistic art using copper, bronze, brass, etc., and wood and terracotta and so on. Àwọn ò ṣe lórí òrìṣà kankan, àwọn kan create a work of art ní. And Yoruba and white people are still surprised. In those ancient times, one Yoruba artists totally produce ìkíní wọ̀nyẹn. It's a shock. How did it happen? One Yoruba, an African artist or some African artists that could produce those works of art. How did it happen? That is it. The name of Olokun. Ngba Frobenius yẹn tó wá sí Ifẹ̀, anthropologist lòun. All the works of art when you yà lẹ́nu. Ó kọ́kọ́ theorize pé no, kò lè jẹ́ àwọn ará bí ló ṣe nǹkan bí eléyìí. Ó ní láti jẹ́ pé a Greek colony existed in this part in some ancient time. But later, withdraw yẹn. But he wanted to see more. Àwọn èèyàn wá sọ fún pé eléyìí tó rí láàfin just a few ibi kan wà. Ọjà Olókun. Ọjà níbẹ̀. Wọ́n pè ní ọjà Olókun ní Ifẹ̀. It's an ancient marketplace. Olókun yẹn obìnrin kan ló ń jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ tó jẹ́ trader. The first rich person tá mọ̀ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá nìyẹn. The first rich Yoruba person tó dolówó rẹpẹtẹ tó di rich person was this woman. Rántí orúkọ ẹ̀ mọ́. Wọ́n pè ní Olókun torí pé Olókun is the goddess of the sea, the goddess of wealth. Orúkọ tán wá ń pè nìyẹn. She started by trading in beads, àwa Yorùbá là ń ṣe bíìdì láyé ìgbà táwọn òyìnbó dọ́dọ̀ wa náà tó rí beads àwa la máa lọ ń kó beads lọ tà káàkiri the rest of Africa ó ń ta beads then ó tún wá lọ ń ta góòrò ó tún sẹ́ndì ẹrù góòrò lọ sí north lọ tà then ó tún wá ń ta ẹṣin àkó ẹṣin wá láti ilẹ̀ Kanuri between the best sources tí ń wá nìyẹn a máa tà and so on. So she became a phenomenally rich person. After her, wọ́n bẹ̀ sí pé ọjà yẹn ní ọjà olókun, ọjà obìnrin yẹn, ìṣọjà olókun òrìṣà. No. So, wọ́n wá mú Frobenius lọ síbẹ̀ ní 1910. Ó wá rí àwọn workshops ó ti fall down. But náà ṣe àgbègbè lítò àrí orí ń bẹ̀ àrí orí tán tó wà ń bẹ̀ bronze terracotta etc. And so it was a center of great art. Frobenius ló wá ń pè ní olókun head. That is kì í ṣe orí olókun òrìṣà orí tó ń discover tó ń wú ní the place called olókun. That's the origin of the name. It's a piece of art to Yakawa Yoruba proud of forever. It is one of the greatest works of art on earth. To Yakama proud of. I want to pay to look at what you pay for Orisha. It's just a beautiful work of art. A testimony to our artistic capabilities in ancient times.
Our creativity. Yes, sir.
To our creativity, yes,
yes, sir.
So Kishori Olokun, Frobenius long pay Lori Olokun. Because on Lossi Luan Lord Kodia law. Bogona long pay Lori Olokun, heads found in Olokun market. Ọjà olókun ṣì wà ní Fẹ̀dẹ̀ ní nínú igbó ó ṣì wà ń bẹ̀ lẹ́bàáyé tó bá lọ sí Iléṣà lọ́nà àtijọ́ lọ́wọ́ ọ̀tún báyìí ní olókun grove ológun market grove ó ṣì wà ń bẹ̀. Ìgbà tí mo ń ṣe undergraduate a sì lọ ń ṣe research bẹ̀ ìgbà tí mo ń ṣe professor a sì ń ká àwọn ọmọ wa lọ bẹ̀ olókun market.
Daddy, mo sì tún ní question kan o. I have a question. Yeah, mo ní question kan. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, please.
Exceptionally beautiful Yoruba work of art. That's all. Yes, okay. Any other questions?
Okay. Yes, Daddy, mo ní question, sir.
Just 1 second, question. Baba Bedu, how you question
No one, send the question why am I sorry?
All right.
Okay, so yeah, ẹ ṣeun gan ni, God bless. Daddy, ẹ ṣeun gan, sir. Inú mi dùn gan tẹ́ ń bá wa yànnà gbogbo àwọn hacking questions yìí. Daddy, I have another question. Mo tún máa béèrè question bí mo ṣe béèrè last question. Daddy, imagine I want to go for a conference, sir. Ẹ mọ̀ pé mo fẹ́ submit paper kí tó lọ fún conference. Màá submit paper. That is the process here. Wá jẹ́ kí n mọ̀ tó bá ṣe pé wọ́n accept papers mi tí máa present. So that means pé nǹkan tí bá fẹ́ lọ present, ó gbọ́dọ̀ ní proof ibi tí mo ti rí gbogbo information yẹn. I must be able to, present ibi tí mo ti rí gbogbo information. Daddy, a ti máa ń gbọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ní ọ̀rọ̀ ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Wọ́n ní Ṣàngó, wọ́n ní pé ó rá mọ́lẹ̀ àbí ó para mọ́lẹ̀ àbí I don't know me mo bó ṣe mi ń lo Yorùbá yẹn sir I'm very sorry sir. Ẹ bá mi accept mo ṣe lo Yorùbá yẹn. Wọ́n ní Ògún disappear sir. Wọ́n ní gbogbo but èmi sir nǹkan tí mi rò ní pé nǹkan tí mi ò bá lè prove kò sí fact ń bíbẹ̀. èmi wá ń try láti pé link ẹ̀ pé ayé ìgbà yẹn.
Do you belong to the academic profession?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm a lecturer.
Okay. Yeah.
So èmi rò pé nígbà yẹn sà bíi pé ní documentaries document nǹkan so ẹ̀yin náà dẹ̀ ti confam pé gbogbo wọn máa ń bára wọn jà ní time yẹn so definitely bó ṣe ń confront ara wọn àwọn èèyàn ń gbàbẹ̀ kú so ó lè ṣe pé ibi ojú ogun ibi tó kú sí tọ́ọ̀rí ibi tọ́ọ̀rí corpse tọ́ọ̀rí body wọn á ní ẹni ẹ̀ra mọ́lẹ̀ wọn ní ó para mọ́lẹ̀ àbí I don't know the Yorùbá sà ẹjọ́ dájú sà tẹ̀lé yan ọ̀nà ibẹ̀ yẹn fún mi sà kí ni yẹn wọ́n máa ń fọ́ mi lórí ńgbà míì sà ẹjọ́ dájú.
For a lorry, that's every nation in the world has their own way of expressing their history. And if you write your paper and you quote that is the tradition of the people, is sufficient. All this your talk of facts and figures doesn't hold together in the study of history quite often. You can quote what the people say is their history, is their tradition. That's part of the source material for your work, for your paper. And nobody is going to turn your paper down because of that. Because senior people, one need to turn it down. To quote facts and figures. Because we talk about facts and figures too often. Are you of the academic profession or of facts and figures quite often in the study of history? That's the truth of the matter. So there is this intercrossing of names. Sin òrìṣà kan tó dẹ̀wà wà distinguished tó ṣe wọ́n lè fún lórúkọ òrìṣà yẹn. When Ọ̀rànmíyàn left Ọ̀yọ́, tó padà lọlé after creating the Ọ̀yọ́ Ilé kingdom, ó wá gbọ́ pé ogun jà ní Ilé Ifẹ̀. A succession dispute got worse and worse and became a civil war. What's the farm ọmọ ẹ̀ pé òun á fi mí sílẹ̀ ni o. Òun á padà lọ sí kingdom bàbá òun ò lè jẹ́ kó bàjẹ́ o. So he made one of his sons the king, a younger man who was a warrior. Ìyẹn wá jọba. Torí bó ṣe máa ń jà bí àrá ni. Òun ló kọ́ establish for Ọ̀yọ́ Ilé its total independence káwọn ìbàrìbá àwọn ẹnu pé máa yọ lẹ́nu mọ́. Ìdí nìyẹn tán fi fún ní orúkọ Ṣàngó. But at some point, he felt insulted, disrespected by his people, and he left the throne. And àwọn èèyàn believe pé ibì kan not far from Ọ̀yọ́ Ilé tán pè ní Kòsó ibẹ̀ ló lọ so ló wọlẹ̀ sí ló ṣe kinní kan sí, but the important thing is that he left his throne. So but the very facts and figures láti prove yẹn. So you need to modify your facts and figures and theory of life. Things don't happen like that. In Yoruba land, you will find people being given the name of gods. They were so impressed by their new king that they gave him the name Oduduwa. Another contemporary of his, older man than he, who was the ruler of Ideta, the largest of the small settlements in Ife. Obatala lorúkọ ẹ̀. wọ́n bẹ̀ sí pè ní òòṣà ńlá. So you write your paper and you say that that's what happened, and older historians like me will turn it down. It won't happen.
Ẹ ṣeun gan, sir. Thank you, sir.
Ẹ ṣé sir.
Máa fẹ́ kí dáàdi ẹ ṣe gan ni. Àti dáàdi tó rí mo fi pé à ní more question concern ó ti clear everybody.
Hold on, bàbá Omoboriowo, hold on. Okay, sọ̀rọ̀ yín, bàbá Ògomi.
Okay, ṣe mo fẹ́ kí bóyá.
Hold on, bàbá Omoboriowo.
All right.
Okay, sọ̀rọ̀.
Gbọ́ wọn o.
Ṣé wọ́n on mute wọn ni?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n sọ̀rọ̀ from other kìnìún. Gbọ́ wọn dáadáa ní ká sọ̀rọ̀ sókè wá gbẹ̀dú.
Gbẹ̀dú tẹ́ ẹ bá ti lo speaker. Gbẹ̀dú tẹ́ ẹ bá ti lo speaker wọn ò ní lè gbọ́ wọn bí TikTok ṣe ń ṣiṣẹ́ nìyẹn. Tẹ́ ẹ bá ti lo speaker.
Ẹ máa sọ̀rọ̀ yín lọ, bàbá Ògomi, hold on, máa get speaker sí. Bàbá Omoboriowo, ẹ máa sọ̀rọ̀ yín lọ.
Ẹ ṣe gan ni. Mo invite bàbá wa Síjú Adé. Mo fi ti ẹṣẹ ní kó torí pé dáàdi náà ní meeting ìfẹ́ kí á dá wọn dúró pé kí ẹ̀yin béèrè. Mo fẹ́ kí ẹ̀yin náà kẹ́ bá wa dá sí láàrin ìṣẹ́jú méjì péré concerning this issue of ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá yìí. Ẹ ṣe púpọ̀. Dáàdi wà náà, that's Professor Banji Akintoye bá wa ní wọ́n ti bá wa sọ látàárọ̀. Pé ẹ̀yin náà má ta kí ẹ̀yin náà fẹ́ bá wa rí sọ sí.
Ẹ kú dédé àsìkò yìí. A kú dédé àsìkò yìí o.
Yes, sir.
Ọ̀rọ̀ tí mo kí bàbá wa Professor dàgbódẹ̀ kejì tí mi àti wọ́n ti jọ sọ̀rọ̀ rí. Bàbá ni wọ́n ti kú lẹ́ni tí àwọn máa sọ̀rọ̀ tá máa sọ pé kán gbẹ́nu sọ́hùn. Àgbàlagbà tó kù ní Ifẹ̀ òun ni wọ́n. Tá a bá ń dárúkọ Ifẹ̀ àwa tán sọ di Yorùbá àjẹbẹ́. Bá ní kí n sọ̀rọ̀ ìṣẹ́jú méjì ò ní lè tó mi. Bóyá kí n ṣe sùúrù di ọjọ́ mi.
Ẹ tẹ̀síwájú.
Rárá, ìgbà tẹ́ sọ wípé wọ́n ń lọ sí àwọn ibì kan tàbí wọ́n ní àwọn dàmú.
Bóyá tí dáàdi bá jáde torí wọ́n tún ní meeting bóyá wàá gbà bóyá ẹ̀yin ẹ bá wa tẹ̀síwájú ńgbà yẹn torí tí mo rò náà nìyẹn ṣùgbọ́n dáàdi ti bá wa yànnà náà.
Ẹ jẹ́ ká máa sọ̀rọ̀ wọn. Ẹ máa
sọ̀rọ̀ yín sà. Ẹ máa sọ̀rọ̀ yín.
Nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ni wípé n tó kó gbogbo nǹkan yìí já ni wípé kò sí àkọsílẹ̀ tó yanntàn tàbí tí ó yè kooro ní àwọn àsìkò ìgbà BC tí àwọn ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ ńlá kan ti ṣẹlẹ̀. Àkọ́kọ́ nìyẹn. Ẹ̀ẹ̀kejì, àwọn èèyàn ò mọ ìyàtọ̀ láàárín ìgbà ẹrúmọlẹ̀ Òdìkọ̀tún, ọ̀kànlérúgba ẹrúmọlẹ̀ Òdìkòsì àti àwọn abá ẹrúmọlẹ̀ Ìjórúkọ. Bàbá ti tan ìmọ́lẹ̀ sí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn nǹkan tí ó ń ṣókùnkùn láàárín ìṣẹ́jú márùn-ún sígbà táwa yìí pé àwọn èèyàn á máa bá irúnmọlẹ̀ Ìjórúkọ. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́ bàbá wa Professor.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ohun táwọn èèyàn ò mọ̀ nìyẹn. Ìyàtọ̀ wà láàárín Ṣàngó Ayélẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ ọ̀run tí í ṣe irúnmọlẹ̀ àti Ṣàngó Aláàfin.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ayélẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ ọ̀run ọ̀tọ̀, Aláàfin ọ̀tọ̀, Odùduwà àtàkọ́kọ́ ọ̀tọ̀. Ẹni tó fìwà jọ Odùduwà ní Ifẹ̀ tó fi jọba ọ̀tọ̀.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ọbàtálá Bàtárìṣà, ọba takuntakun tó ń bẹ lóde Ìrànjẹ ti irúnmọlẹ̀ ọ̀tọ̀. Abá irúnmọlẹ̀ Ìjórúkọ ọ̀tọ̀. Ẹ wo Sunday Ìgbòho, ṣé òòṣà ni? Kí ló dé tá à ń pè lóòṣà? Nítorí pé ó ń hùwà takuntakun ni. Tó bá máa fi di 2000 ọdún sígbà tá a wà yìí, àwọn kan bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí tàgẹ̀ wípé ó wá látọ̀run.
Òótọ́ ni wọ́n sọ. Ọmọ ní Sunday òòṣà.
Wọ́n á ní Sunday òòṣà. A tètè bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí máa erase pé kì í ṣe òòṣà, is a man like us. Tó bá tó bí 2000 years tí generation tiwa yìí ti lọ tó kù àwọn ọmọ àrọ́mọdọ́mọ ti wá. Nǹkan wọ́n máa sọ ni pé òrìṣà kan wá o, a ò mọ bàbá ẹ̀ o, a ò mọ̀ ìyá ẹ̀ o, ṣùgbọ́n ṣe ló hán ìbọn látọ̀run. tí kì í bá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ẹ wo fídíò táwọn bàbá wa ṣò òòṣà náà ń pè é ó wáyìn ó máa ń fọ̀m ó dẹ̀ kọlà. Another mystery of no root it generates from such. That is number 2. Number 3, I want to clear the fact that a ò mọ ìtumọ̀ kí ni wọ́n ń pè ní Ifá. Wọ́n mi wá béèrè ọ̀rọ̀ kan lẹ́ẹ̀kan wípé ó wà somehow láti kò ṣe máa sọ pé Ifá ló bí wa. Ifá ló bí wa, Ifá sì kọ́ ló bí wa o. Ó ní bó ṣe jẹ́. The name looks somehow odd to us, but it sounds valuable to some other generations or some other tribes. Ọ̀rúnmìlà bara àgbọnnìrègún bara lẹ́ṣin yóò jó ní gbẹ̀dú ọ̀run. Òkété irin tí ìfọn kéyìn irin ó tó máa fọn gbọ́lá jókòó ọmọ irin tí ìfọn gbòógbò kí a lọ. Jùmùjùmù kí òun mú láyà obìnrin gúnyán jẹ. Ọ̀rúnmìlà tí à ń sọ̀rọ̀ nípa èyí was an ancient priest tá a pè ní Ifá priest before the coming of Jesus Christ at all. Kò kí ń ṣe ọ̀dọ̀ wa ń bíbá yìí nìkan ṣo.
500 BC.
Yes, kò ń ṣe ọ̀dọ̀ wa ń bíbá yìí nìkan ṣo ló ti kọ́ wọn nífá. A lot of people came to us to come and learn all this. Ẹ gbọ́ láti bí bead, bàbá sọ wípé àwa la ní bead throughout the world, throughout Africa, and kò cost ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn èèyàn like China or Chinese, Japanese, and people from the Arabians to come and learn. When these people came to Orunmila to come and learn all this, níbo ni wọ́n ti rí I-chain? Is it not the knowledge of 64 broken lines? Níbo ni àwọn Arabians ti rí àti Romili, títẹ̀ríkì tó jẹ́ ògbè, Bayado ó jẹ́ òtúrúpọ̀n, Umuratu ó jẹ́ ìka, Nkisi ó jẹ́ ọ̀kànràn, Ọ̀wọ́nrín ó jẹ́ Nasara Dáìlì. They came to us to come and learn all this. But nǹkan tí mo kàn fẹ́ káwọn èèyàn mọ̀ ni wípé these people are very smart to the extent that when they learn a lot of things from you, wọ́n á try láti turn against it, and they will not make you to become the slave of that thing as if they were the one teaching you. Náà ṣe sọ fún wa pé tó bá yá òyìnbó ní òpadà máa wá kọ́ wa bá a ṣe máa dáfá if we are not careful. Àwọn ọmọ mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta tí mo dárúkọ ẹ̀ the I-chain, Ifá, and the Art-Mombaku, Art-Romili. The same thing ló wà nínú àwọn mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta. A dẹ̀ sọ pé Ọ̀rúnmìlà lọ́lọ́run Elédùmarè fún nífá. Anybody ò dé jí hàn sí. How about nìyẹn ṣe come to?
The same thing the Jewish tourism and so on, lórúkọ.
Yes, tí àwọn Jews tí wọ́n bá fẹ́ cast lot.
The same thing.
Kí lórúkọ ẹ̀ ni wọ́n máa ń gé sí méjì, ike Ifá ló máa gé sí méjì ló máa wà nínú àpò wọn, òun làwọn máa ń dà. Tí wọ́n bá sọ pé they cast lot, ẹ wò gbà tí lot tí Ọlọ́run rán lọ sí Táṣíṣì tí wọ́n fi sọ pé kó sẹ́nu ẹja gẹ́gẹ́ bí wọ́n ṣe máa ń pìtàn. Ìgbà tí wọ́n fẹ́ cast lot, ike Ifá náà máa ń pín sọ́nà méjì, á dẹ̀ jẹ́ 16. Ẹni tẹ́ bá rí kẹ́ẹ̀bí. Nǹkan tán fi ń béèrè nǹkan nìyẹn. They were all products and knowledge from Ọ̀rúnmìlà bara àgbọnnìrègún. But kíní kan máa ń ṣe wá. A ò kí ń tètè ń bá idea àtọ̀dọ̀ tiwa until we go elsewhere to go and learn the same thing. Tèmi bá po ẹ̀kọ tí mo fún àwọn ọmọ mi mu, wọn ò ní mú until ìgbà tá a bá gbé custard dé. That is where the problem is. Tèmi bá mú ìlẹ̀kẹ̀ òtútù ọpọ̀n tí mo fi sọ́rùn, àwọn ọmọ wa ò ní láìkẹ̀ until ìgbà tá a bá mú bead àwọn Catholic wá. What's the difference?
Bàbá Omoboriowo.
Ifá ti jẹ́ ká mọ̀ wípé nǹkan ní nǹkan bàbá wọn kì í wù wọ́n tí bàbá oníbàbá ló máa ń yá wọn lára. Adífá fún ìwọ̀dẹ̀ rẹ̀ tí ṣalábàárìn ẹja. Ẹ̀kejì ni wípé àwa tí à ń sọ̀rọ̀ yìí ancient people ni wá, ọmọ aládé dẹ̀ ni wá láti ọ̀dọ̀ Odùduwà àkọ́kọ́ láti originate. Ẹ gbọ́ bí Ifá ṣe sọ̀rọ̀ lẹ́nu Ògbè Alára ni. Ó ní kékeré ni mo ti ń ṣọmọ lọ́wọ́ Ifá, kùtùkùtù ni mo ti ń ṣọmọ Odùduwà. Ọlátinúwẹ̀ ní Fátúnmi sọ lórúkọ, dífá fún arẹ̀rẹ̀ gosùn tí ó ṣàwo títí tí ó máa dójìjí ìkó. Èmi ò lè ṣàwo títí bó ṣe kú o, mo ti ṣàwo arẹ̀rẹ̀ gosùn. Ifá wá ṣe mí bí ọba, Ọ̀rúnmìlà wá ṣe mí bí ọmọ Ògbè Alára. Ifá wá ṣe mí bí ọba, ọmọ aládé ni wá. Tí wọn ò bá pè wá ń káàárọ̀ òjíire, wọn á pè wá lọ́mọlúàbí tàbí kí wọ́n pè wá lọ́mọ aládé.
Jókòó mọ́ mi, jókòó.
Bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn. Thank you very much.
Ẹ ṣe gan dáàdi, ẹ ṣe. Ọyá àlágbẹ̀dọ.
Hold on. Bàbá Ògbómi yẹ sọ̀rọ̀ ó sì jẹ́ kí n gbọ́.
Gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọ̀rọ̀ tí bàbá sọ, ìyẹn fi yé wa pé Ṣàngó yẹn, torí èmi náà kọ rẹ̀ ní Fábáyésù.
Ẹ máa ń ṣe.
Ṣàngó yẹn ṣé sọ̀rọ̀ yẹn kì í ṣe létà sọ pé ọba tuntun ọba kò wọn sọ pé ọba kò tó. At the end of the day, a ti mọ̀ pé kì í ṣe èyí tá à ń pè ní thunder èyí tó wà nù Bíbélì.
Bàbá ìlú kí ni question? Ẹ bá wọn translate, ẹ bá wọn sọ èdè ìwé ṣe sọ, ẹ bá wọn sọ.
Ṣàngó yẹn kì í ṣe ìyẹn èèyàn ni, kì í ṣe thunder tó jẹ́ ìránṣẹ́ kan tó ń strike lókè.
Ok, wọ́n ní ṣé Ṣàngó yẹn pé ṣé ti èèyàn ni kì í ṣe lè tó wà nù Bible tí wọ́n ń pè ní thunder. So màá fi sí dáàdi wa. Ok.
Àmọ̀ràn èkejì ni pé torí ẹni tó sọ̀rọ̀ Rúbìlà ń sìn torúkọ èèyàn ni àbí igi ni àbí báwo ni ṣé èèyàn ló ń
ok dáàdi wa Aṣíwájú wọ́n ní Ọ̀rúnmìlà wọ́n ní ṣé orúkọ èèyàn ni àbí orúkọ ìpín àbífá.
Ok, wọ́n á dá yín lóhùn sí ẹ̀mí.
Wọ́n ní ṣé the same Ṣàngó tí wọ́n yìí wá ní sọ́nà ni wọ́n ń pè ní thunder nínú Bible and Ọ̀rúnmìlà yẹn ṣé orúkọ èèyàn ni àbí orúkọ Ifá. Ẹ ṣé.
Thunder itself is one of those characteristics or something in our space. Téèyàn bá wà láyé tó bá ń hu ìwà kan irúfìn nígbà téèyàn bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ tíná bá ń jáde lẹ́nu ẹ̀. Ṣé ń gbọ́? Tàbí tó ń sọ̀rọ̀ tí ara ń kú gírírí. Listen to something like that. Àrá gbogbo wa lọ́rọ̀ òjìrè nìkan tó ní àrá ti ń sán rárá o. But Ṣàngó tó jẹ́ irúnmọlẹ̀ àkọ́kọ́ ìyẹn là ń pè ní ayélẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ ọ̀run. Èyí tí wọ́n tó ń hùwà takuntakun tí wọ́n fi jọ Ọ̀yọ́ ọ̀tọ̀. Wọ́n pè é bẹ́ẹ̀ nítorí ìwà tó ń hù. Òun náà lè ní characteristic rẹ̀. A lè rí èèyàn náà léni tí a bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí máa sọ̀rọ̀ tí náà máa jáde lẹ́nu ẹ̀. Àwọn èèyàn náà sá ń jẹ náà. So that is that about that. Number 2 ni pé Ọ̀rúnmìlà èèyàn ni. Kò sí àwọn irúnmọlẹ̀ kan tí ò wá in form of èèyàn. They came in form wọn kì í ṣe igi, wọn kì í ṣe òkúta.
Wọ́n wá àṣà ànábì kan, èèyàn kan, ànábì kan.
Èmi ò mọ ohun tó àwọn òjíṣẹ́ Elédùmarè làwa mọ̀. Some people bring a lot of things. They bring a lot of things to us. We welcome it. But we took our own to them. They rejected them. I don't have any problem with any religion or with any. I don't have any dispute in anybody bringing anything. But ibi tó wù mí kí n sọ̀rọ̀ sí mo ti sọ pé Ọ̀rúnmìlà òun tiẹ̀ máa ń wá ó máa ń lọ ni torí aṣayé ṣọ̀run là ń pè é. reincarnation náà ó tó many times tí Ọ̀rúnmìlà máa ń wá tó máa ń lọ tó máa ń wá tó máa ń lọ ó dẹ̀ hàn nínú odù Ifá tó bó ṣe ń wá bó ṣe ń lọ ní odù Ifá tó kọ̀ọ̀kan ló bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí àpíà. But eléyìí tí mo fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ ní Zoom ni wípé bíi kí wọ́n máa sọ wípé Ádámọ̀ àti Éfà òun ni gbogbo wa ti originate tàbí kó jẹ́ pé ń bo ni àwa ọmọ káàárọ̀ oòjíire ti originate. Àwọn fact kan á bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí máa jáde from today. There is nothing called Adam and Eve anywhere and I have a proof for that. Tó bá jẹ́ wípé there is Adam tọ́lọ́run ò dẹ̀ dá nǹkan míì yàtọ̀ sí wọn wáyé tá a ṣe ní àwọn Chinese tí eyín wọn jóná tí wọ́n dẹ̀ pupa bó ṣe wà àpòpín sí Chinese dúdú. And then when we look at DNA wáyé tí gbogbo wo ṣe ní the same DNA tó wà lára mi kó máa lọ wà lára àwọn Portuguese ó wà láàrin àwọn Portunovo ó wà láàrin no we have a lot of sources of DNA. So far we have a lot of DNA proofs that there are a lot of human beings that has ever been right from the beginning of life, not from one person. Had it been we came from Adam and Eve, we're supposed to have 2 DNA. But why do we have several DNA? Go and tell me, go and answer the question. Nobody can do that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bàbá náà ti sọ Professor Banji wọ́n ti sọ kódó tẹ́ sọ yìí wọ́n sọ wípé the oldest DNA in the whole world it came from Ilé-Ifẹ̀ from Yoruba race. Nígbà tí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní wábi tí Yorùbá tí wọ́n bá tí wọ́n wábi tí àwọn èèyàn ti create wọ́n rí wípé the new scientists now the oldest DNA test wọ́n rí wípé ilẹ̀ Yorùbá òun náà ni the oldest DNA test tí wọ́n ṣe lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ ń sìn which is pé ilẹ̀
Yorùbá. Bàbá Omoboriowo nítorí bàbá kí bàbá ò ní pẹ́ lọ sí bẹ́ẹ̀dì ta ló ti fẹ́ béèrè question ní orí TikTok so that a ṣe pápá torí bàbá ò ní pẹ́ lọ mọ́.
Mo ní béèrè sá.
Ó yẹ sáré béèrè.
Mo fẹ́ dìbò mi mọ̀ bóyá ti béèrè tẹ́lẹ̀ sá. Mo wọ̀ ọ́ dìbò.
Ẹ béèrè.
Ọ̀rẹ́. Ẹjọ́ sá mo fẹ́ béèrè ni ṣé ìjà tó wà nínú Oòduà àti Odùduwà tó jọba ní Ọ̀yọ́.
Tó jọba ní Ifẹ̀. Oòduà tó jọba ní Ilé-Ifẹ̀.
Àti Odùduwà àtàkọ́kọ́ àbí.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Bàbá ti dáhùn.
Ó pé méjì ní sà.
Ó lè pé mẹ́wàá. Ó lè pé 20. Ṣé ń gbọ́ mi? Ó lè pé 20. Èmi náà lè dọ̀la kí n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀. Èmi tí mò ń jẹ́ Síjú Adé yìí. Mi ò wá láti ìran Síjú Adé ti Fẹ̀kẹ́. Kán wá fi mí jọba ní ìlú Ẹ̀gbá ni mo tẹ̀dó sí. Kán wá sọ wípé láàrin àwọn àrọ́mọdọ́mọ Ifẹ̀ Ọọ̀ni of Ifẹ̀ ó jọba ní ìlú Ògùn State. Abárúnmọlẹ̀ dórúkọ wà. Irúnmọlẹ̀ fúnra ara ẹ̀ wà. That is what people don't want to agree. Òun ni bàbá ti yànnàná lẹ̀ bàbá ti sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan before I started talking.
Bóyá tí ò bá yé ẹni yẹn in tí wọ́n sọ wípé kẹ́rí ẹni tó dàbí irú ẹ̀yìn sìn bóyá lè tẹ́ ti wá ẹnìkan wà nílé yín tí wọ́n ń pè ní Ọláwálé Ògúnníran lẹ́yìn ṣẹ́ńtọ́ ìsànílé yín nígbà tí ẹni yẹn gbé èèyàn tó ṣe takuntakun tó ṣiṣẹ́ agbára tó gbìyànjú ẹni tí wọ́n papòdà àgbà táwọn èèyàn wá tí wọ́n bímọ wọn tí wọ́n ń sọ ẹni yẹn náà ní Ọláwálé Ògúnníran táwọn ń sìn wọ́n fi Sunday Igboho ṣàpèjúwe wọ́n ń pè ní òòṣà ṣé òòṣà nínú ọ̀tọ̀ ní òòṣà tó jẹ́ original òòṣà ṣùgbọ́n Sunday Igboho ó wùwà bí òòṣà ó ń ṣe takuntakun la ṣe ń pè ní òòṣà gẹ́gẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni Odùduwà tó tẹ̀wọ̀n rọ̀ ọ̀tọ̀ yẹn ní Odùduwà tó tẹ̀wọ̀n rọ̀ ọ̀tọ̀ lẹ́yìn ìgbà tó lọ tán àwọn èèyàn wá ń jẹ́ orúkọ yẹn ó wà lára àwọn tán fi ṣe orúkọ lẹ́fẹ̀ẹ́ pé àrólé Oòduà wọ́n ṣe máa ń pè wọ́n ní àrólé Odùduwà ní Ilé-Ifẹ̀ wá ní Síjú Adé àrólé Oòduà dàtí àwọn àrólé ẹ̀ ni wọ́n wá ń sọ yẹn àwọn àrólé ẹ̀ ni wọ́n ń wá yẹn the same thing tá bá sọ pé Ṣàngó ayílẹ̀gbẹ́ ọ̀run wà àwọn Ṣàngó tó jẹ́ rí Ṣàngó wà but àwọn Ṣàngó òsìn wọ́n ń bá Ṣàngó jorúkọ ni wọn kì í ṣe rí Ṣàngó gangan ó dàbí ká sọ ọmọ ní Jésù Kristi yìí kó ba lè tún yé wa tó bá jẹ́ Christian Jésù Kristi ti lọ àwọn ọmọ tá a bá tún wá bí ká máa sọ wọ́n ní Jesus Christ ká tún máa sọ wọ́n ní Jesus Christ rí Jesus gẹ́gẹ́ ti lọ a kàn ń sọ àwọn ọmọ wa nítorí pé a rí pati Jésù kó láyé sọ àwọn ọmọ wa ní Jésù just for instance ara àwọn tó ń jẹ́ Muhammad àwọn ànábì Muhammad náà wá ó ti lọ but àwọn èèyàn tó sì ń jẹ́ orúkọ ẹ̀ àwọn Muhammad Isa Muhammad Qadir Muhammad Yusuf Muhammad Lawal ṣe ti bẹ́ẹ̀ pé àtún orúkọ yẹn kó mọ̀ bá parun àwọn èèyàn tún repeat orúkọ yẹn ó ní àwọn orúkọ òrìṣà tí wọ́n repeat ń sìn yìí mo rò pé ó ti jẹ́ dáàdi wa tí wọ́n béèrè ẹ ṣe pọ̀ any next question.
Okay, bàbá.
ẹ má bínú sà lastly sà mo fẹ́ kí wọ́n bá mi ṣàlàyé àárín kan ni ẹ mọ̀ pé wọ́n sọ pé Odùduwà kan wá láti Mẹ́kà èmi mọ̀ pé kò wá láti Mẹ́kà ọmọ Káàárọ̀ Oòjíire ni but ṣé Ilé Ifẹ̀ ló ti jọba èyí tí wọ́n ń sọ yẹn but a mọ̀ pé èmi mọ̀ pé ó lọ sí trade ní ó trade lọ but ṣé Ilé Ifẹ̀ lòun ti jọba ní èyí tí wọ́n ń sọ yẹn àbí Ọ̀yọ́.
bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn ọkọ̀ ìjọba lọ́yọ̀ọ́ Ifẹ̀ pọ̀ ṣe rí Ifẹ̀ tèní ó jìnnà sí ibi tí Ifẹ̀ àkọ́kọ́ wà àwọn tó jẹ́ òǹpìtàn èmi ò kì í ṣe òǹpìtàn babaláwo lèmi profession àwọn tí profession wọn jẹ́ òǹpìtàn ọ̀tọ̀ téèyàn ò bá dẹ̀ mọ ìtàn ibì kan kò gbọ́dọ̀ máa blab lórí internet. If I tell you something, that is how it is. I spent 18 years in Deeper Life and I spent a lot of years studying Arabic kó tó di pé mo ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wá jókòó pé mo jẹ́ babaláwo. So it would be very difficult for somebody to bend what I say, not because I know it, but because I asked from the right source and from the right sources. So nítorí náà ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn nǹkan ni a ti fààyè gbà lọ́dọ̀ wa tí kinní yẹn ò dẹ̀ rí bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹjọ́ tó Odùduwà bá wá láti Mẹ́kà níbo la gbolé wọn lọ́hùn.
Ẹ má tiẹ̀ jẹ́ ká béèrè ẹ má. Bàbá wa gbọ́. Ẹ má jẹ́ ká béèrè irú question wọ̀nyẹn. Odùduwà wá láti Mẹ́kà ló ń jẹ́ Mẹ́kà.
Kò sí nǹkan kan tó jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ ìgbà wo náà dá Mẹ́kà sílẹ̀.
No, that's say no. Mo ti sọ earlier on the first educated people were educated in Christian line. So àwọn ló ń sọ yẹn.
No brainwash.
Samuel Johnson. Kò sí any serious historian lẹ́ni tó máa sọ pé Mẹ́kà ni Odùduwà ti wá ní Yorùbá ti wá. It doesn't arise. It doesn't arise anymore. So ẹ má tẹ̀jọ́ ká máa repeat yẹ.
Mi mọ̀ pé bàbá Akintoye wà ń bẹ̀sà.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, àwọn la gbé wá.
Ẹ ṣé o, ẹ kú iṣẹ́.
Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ̀ jẹ́ wa lórí sọ́kàn tá a fẹ́ jẹ́ wa àti nígbẹ̀rù kí wọ́n ju líǹkì ẹ̀sìn lọ lé káwọn èèyàn join. So bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn.
Líǹkì ò lọ lórí TikTok.
Okay, kò lọ lórí TikTok. Now, any person.
Hold on. Bàbá Omoboriowo. Líǹkì ò lọ lórí TikTok.
Okay, àti ní káwọn èèyàn fún wa ní inbox wọn. Ẹ má wọrí, ṣé tí bàbá bá ti ṣe tí wọ́n tán, à ń gbé bàbá Síjú Adébọ̀ bóyá next week lágbọ́ Ọlọ́run, à ti sọ fún àwọn èèyàn pé wọ́n ti ní link lọ́wọ́. We have to because Yorùbá a gbọ́dọ̀ mọ ibi tá a ti wá. We don't need to be just saying the history that is not belong to us. History tí ó kàn wá, ó yẹ ká Yorùbá Bíbélì kan sọ pé ní ẹwà àdógó dájúdájú ẹ yẹ ká dé tó ìṣètò àti òdodo mú. We need to know the fact about our own knowledge. Àti mọ fact lónìí wípé wà láti Mẹ́kà ìran wà láti but ajé yẹn kan tó yẹ kó máa ń travel ó máa ń lọ rajà far away to so
ibi tó Ọlọ́run dá wa sí làwà yìí àwa Yorùbá ibi tó Ọlọ́run dá wa sí ni wọ́n wá gbogbo DNA káàkiri ayé wọn ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa náà to the oldest and that's kò sí anybody tó lè yí padà.
Ẹjọ́ níbo ni Ìkẹ́dù ṣé Ìkẹ́dù land wà ní àdókè là ń jẹ́ kó tó là ń jẹ́ Yorùbá.
Kílẹ̀ nìyẹn bèrè àwọn kí wọ́n bèrè.
Wọ́n ní ibo ni Ìkẹ́dù ṣé Ìkẹ́dù là ń kọ́ ń jẹ́ ká tó jẹ́ Yorùbá bí Yorùbá là ń kọ́ jẹ́ fọ́sọ̀.
Wọ́n pẹ́ kó tó dé ni wọ́n ti sọ mọ́rọ̀ ìbá rẹ́kọ̀dù.
Kílẹ̀ lẹ́yìn jẹ́ ṣẹ̀ká tó máa jẹ́ Yorùbá yìí.
Wọ́n ní ṣé Ìkẹ́dù là ń jẹ́ ká tó máa jẹ́ Yorùbá.
Kedu. Our group of history buffs, history historians in ancient Ife Kedu. It's not. That's not the name for the group, for the whole Yoruba nation. It's just the name of the earliest people to gather numbers, consider history Yoruba. And Kedu. Kedu is not it's not the first name for the Yoruba people.
Okay, Daddy o. Ẹ tó bá wa sọ ní ẹ bá wa sọ bí tí wọ́n ti ń torí ẹni yóò mọ ẹni fẹ́ bèrè pé okay báwo la ṣe ń jẹ́ Yorùbá mọ̀ pé tí sọ tẹ́lẹ̀ ẹ tó bá wa sọ fún wọn kó lè yé wọn pé ọ̀nà bá ṣe ń jẹ́ Yorùbá lélẹ̀ èyí bí tí wọ́n lọ gangan nìyẹn pé báwo la ṣe wá ń jẹ́ Yorùbá tá à ń jẹ́ mo dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé ti sọ ó dẹ̀ pa àwọn ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ dé ni ẹ ṣe ó pọ̀ sà.
Well, Motisola, I don't want to repeat myself. I'm already tired actually.
So,
èmi á suggest pé ẹ jẹ́ ká release bàbá because ẹ mọ̀ wá fẹ́ relax. Nǹkan tí bàbá náà sọ nǹkan tẹ́ ń pé ó kéré gan ni ṣóyé níbẹ̀ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ wípé báwo ni Yorùbá báwo ló ṣe wáyé so àmà fúnra máa sọ fún wọn sẹ́mà ẹ̀ka tún stress bàbá nǹkan tẹ́mi kan máa sọ ni wípé kí gbogbo àwọn bàbá wa.
Ẹ ká dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ dádì ẹ jẹ́ kí gbogbo wa lọ sórí TikTok yìí sìn ká fi orí Zoom lẹ̀ dádì ẹ ṣeun gan sà dádì ẹ ṣeun gan sà ẹ jẹ́ ká off Zoom.
Ẹ ṣe kọ dádì ẹ jẹ́ lórí TikTok àríkọ́ọ̀dù ẹ̀.
So àríkọ́ọ̀dù ẹ̀ màá bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ lẹ́yìn sàṣẹ́gbọ́. Bàbá ń sọ̀rọ̀ lẹ́yìn.
Ẹ jọ máa fẹ́ tí wọ́n bá lè bá wa jẹ́ kí a rewrite history Yorùbá padà tó jẹ́ pé a máa fún gbogbo àwọn ọmọ wa kékeré tó ṣẹ̀ ń bọ̀ yìí so that anybody ni máa fún wọn náà some medic tó yẹ kó máa fún wọn so mo máa suggest bí kẹjọ yín bàbá wa tẹ́ bá lè ṣe kinní fún wa so at least a mọ̀ pé ẹ ti bá wa rewrite gbogbo wọn tẹ́ pé ó ṣókùnkùn sí gbogbo àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá so tábàdà nípa tí yín argue àkọlọ̀ ba lórí Google ni a dẹ̀ máa bá ń bẹ̀ so irú bàbá kan tó sọ pé she is not a Satan nísìn wọ́n ti